Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. In today's episode, we're going to recap a very entertaining race weekend from Atlanta, including Kyle Busch getting back in the win column in the Truck Series, Sheldon Creed earning his first career win in the O'Reilly Series, and Tyler Reddick scoring his second consecutive victory to open the 2026 Cup Series campaign, and yet another wild last lap finish. However, before we get into that, I want to go back to late last week and a story I've been covering for the last month, and that was Chris Gabehart's unexpected departure from Joe Gibbs Racing in the offseason. I asked Chase Briscoe about it last month, and he said things were running like normal. Denny Hamlin addressed it with the media last week at Daytona and said the same thing. The coach said on SiriusXM that they just decided to go their separate ways. On Thursday, we learned it wasn't such a clean breakup after all when JGR filed an $8 million federal lawsuit accusing Gabehart of orchestrating a brazen scheme to steal confidential team data for rival Spire Motorsports. On Friday, Gabehart fired back with a post on X saying, "Yesterday, Joe Gibbs Racing filed a lawsuit claiming falsely that I shared JGR confidential information with Spire Motorsports and or other unnamed third parties," he wrote. "I feel compelled to speak out today and forcefully and emphatically deny these frivolous and retaliatory claims." The word retaliatory stands out. It suggests Gabehart views the lawsuit not as a legitimate effort to protect trade secrets, but as payback, possibly for leaving the organization and taking a prominent role with a competitor. JGR's 30-page complaint alleges Gabehart photographed sensitive data from his company laptop, maintained a Google Drive labeled Spire containing proprietary files, and misrepresented his intentions during separation negotiations. Gabehart's response directly challenges JGR's forensic evidence, which is the very backbone of the lawsuit. A third-party forensic expert retained by JGR recently examined my laptop, cell phone, and personal Google Drive and found no evidence to support the baseless allegations in JGR's lawsuit, Gabehart stated. "We even offered JGR the opportunity to do a similar review of Spire systems. JGR refused that offer and filed this spiteful lawsuit instead." And then on Saturday, the worst-kept secret in NASCAR was confirmed, and that is Gabehart has been hired as the chief motorsports officer at Spire. Daniel Suarez, who is now at Spire, but as you all know, previously drove at Joe Gibbs Racing, had somewhat of a working relationship with Gabehart, had this to say about his new chief motorsports officer.
Yeah, actually, Chris and I, we fought for the championship back in 2016. He was crew chiefing Eric Jones, and I was with Scott Graves. And he's extremely smart and extremely competitive. At the time, crew chief. I have nothing but respect for him. Obviously, I never really got to work with him. Only one race actually in 2017, and nothing for respect for him. He was extremely fast in 2016. He was the biggest threat for us to win the championship with Eric Jones. So nothing for respect for everything that he has done in his career.
NASCAR 2.0 is now in session. Sounds like we'll have another court battle to follow in the coming months. All right, now let's move on to some racing, and we'll start with that Truck Series race on Saturday. As we've come to expect at Atlanta in all three series, it was very entertaining. Unsurprisingly, it came down to the final few laps, and it was really unclear who might be the winner. At one point, it looked like it might be Stewart Friesen. Ben Rhodes, who had a fast truck and led much of the race early, staked his claim late when he made a power move and took the lead. Then, moments later, Kyle Busch returned the favor. However, Busch, with help from his Spire teammate Carson Hocevar giving him a push, held on to capture back-to-back truck wins at the 1.5-mile superspeedway. After the race, Busch had this to say about Hocevar.
We hadn't talked at all, really. So we, in the beginning of the race there, the first stage of the race, he kind of hung me out a couple times, and I was like, okay, here we go. Great teammate I got today. And then in stage two, there was a chance there where Hocevar was in front of me, and he started kind of playing the air a little bit, and I was kind of like, okay, this is good. I'm impressed. I got you. And I pushed him, and we made our way. We started ratcheting ourselves back forward, so that was really good, being teammates. And then there at the end, he was back to being my wingman and keeping us in pace to control the lane and in pace to win the race. I'm not a Spire Motorsports guy on Sunday, so I'm sure that'll play some differences. But it was nice to see that he's got it in him, right? Where in the beginning of the race, it was kind of normal Carson, all over the place. Not all over the place, like out of control, just dicing it up, right? Like cutting moves and making plays like I probably once was. But, and then in the second stage, I was able to kind of be his wingman for a minute. That worked real well for it. And I kind of wanted to say something like, see, when you got a guy that'll stick behind you, you can make some headway. but I kept my mouth shut. I just said it now. And then at the end of the race, that's sort of how we played it, where I guess I had the track position, and so he had to play wingman for the day. So that roles reversed. I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to make sure that one of our trucks wins.
Those final laps were undoubtedly entertaining and made even more so because of the timer everyone was watching. Because of weather that morning, Cup qualifying was canceled and the Truck Series race was pushed back. With NASCAR's adverse conditions policy, the sanctioning body can set a deadline time of when the race will end. Because the O'Reilly Series coverage was scheduled to start at 5, 4:20 was the scheduled end time if the full truck race hadn't been completed. The teams were informed of this, and if you listen to the team radios, which I was listening to Busch's, it was very clear that they were informing him that there were only a few minutes and laps remaining. However, if you listen to Corey Heim's post-race interview, that wasn't the case. Listen to what he had to say.
Probably to run the last 13 laps or so under green without them cutting it short, honestly. It just felt like a big fat waste of time sitting out here for 125 laps, kind of riding around and wait until the end to make a move, and then they decided to cut the race short and only give us a couple laps to notice. So pretty laughable that they would do that, honestly. I'm pretty pissed off at it, but I come out here and prepare all week to run a full race, and all I needed was 13 more laps. It wasn't going to take a long time, and they gave us pretty short notice on it. So, yeah, just stupid. Truck was good. Really proud of my Robin Hood Tundra guys at Tricon, and proud of the effort. We obviously were fast on the first stage, but just basically handing the guys the win that were up front already.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened with Heim and his team. The broadcast announced it before the race even started, so everyone knew they were on the clock. Somehow there must have been a breakdown in communication, but that was a very surprising reaction by the defending champ. Moving on to the afternoon O'Reilly race, and you guys who have followed me have seen my interviews with different pit crew members where we've talked about the dangers on pit road. We saw that on Saturday when Taylor Gray had a frightening moment and launched one of his pit crew members off the front of his car. Thankfully, he was okay. As for the race, it looked to be another Austin Hill coronation until it wasn't. But no one knew that until the final lap. It appeared it was going to be between Hill and Ross Chastain. And then lo and behold, those 15 times before, where Sheldon Creed had not been able to get through and make a trip to victory lane, good fortune this time was on his side. Chastain and Hill made contact, allowing the 00 to surge forward and take the checkered flag for his first career win in the series. I just happened to be listening to Creed's radio, and I want you to take a listen to this emotional finish.
Come top, come on, come on, keep coming. Clear by three, keep coming all the way to the line here. Let's go! Woo! What about that, Sheldon Creed? About time. Way to go, buddy. Way to go, Andy Houston. So proud of this group. Awesome job. Woo! Unbelievable. Thank you guys so much. Wow!
You can't help but be happy for Creed after knowing he's come so close so many times to finally get that first win. 2 super entertaining races down, 1 to go. Interestingly, like last week at Daytona, wind was going to be a factor in the Cup race. Sustained winds were ranging from 20 to 30 miles an hour with gusts to 45. In the pre-race show, all the drivers interviewed, including Chase Elliott and Joey Logano, said they thought the wind would play a factor in the race, especially going down into turns 3 and 4. Speaking of Logano, he sat on the front road alongside Tyler Reddick. Since qualifying was canceled, they were lined up based on their finishes last week in the 500. As expected, there were comers and goers. 30 laps are halfway through that first stage, and you can see the Fords were on the move. Brad Keselowski had moved up 4 positions and taken the lead. Josh Berry had moved up 5 positions, but take a look at Austin Cindric and Ryan Blaney. Cindric had moved up 23 spots, Blaney 12. And take a look at the number 13 spot. Rookie Connor Zilisch had moved up 17 spots to 13th position. When the stage came to an end, Cindric had gone from 30th to 1st, which just goes to show you how racy Atlanta was and how passing was definitely not an issue. He was followed by Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Chase Elliott, an HMS train. Tyler Reddick was 6th and Connor Zilisch finished 8th. We knew there was going to be some excitement on pit road because Atlanta is notorious for having one of the trickiest pit roads because it's so narrow and has the shortest boxes on the entire Cup Series circuit. And that proved to be the case. Chase Elliott was the first victim as he had a bad pit stop that included overshooting his box, then backing up and pulling forward, where he ran over the hose and then backing up again. The stop took a total of 30 seconds. Ryan Blaney also had an issue as he was too fast on exit. Then we got to stage 2, and just 21 laps into the stage, we had our first caution for cause when Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry got together, both suffering heavy damage and ending their days. During the subsequent pit stops, Kyle Busch's team had an issue with one of its tires, and instead of taking 2, took 4. That mistake resulted in the number 8 car dropping from 10th to 24th. In the Fox booth, Kevin Harvick didn't sugarcoat his thoughts about the situation.
That's definitely been the MO out of this team, right? Like, you get yourself in a position to be up in the front of the pack and have a chance to contend for the lead, and all of a sudden you have that mistake and you got to start all over.
Something else of note from Fox during that pit stop, and it wasn't on TV, it was online, as a Fox official announced on X that the remaining Fox broadcast schedule this year for Cup Series races will always feature side-by-side commercial breaks during green flag racing. I have begged for this for years because everybody's always complaining about commercials. We saw last year how Prime stepped up and they did side-by-side coverage. So I think Prime was the catalyst for Fox to make this decision. Regardless of the why, I want to thank Fox for making this decision. Seriously, good call, and as much as I like to complain about Fox's coverage, I want to also give them kudos when they do something right, and I'm really happy about this move. When racing action resumed, we had another caution with a Riley Herbst-caused crash, and then on lap 126, we had a single-car incident with Kyle Busch. Now I want you to listen to 2 different clips. First, let's start with what he had to say on his team radio.
Quick, quick, quick. Push coming. Hold it straight. On you pushing. Lock it down. Lock it down. Straight to pit road here if you can. South at the field. Single car wreck. Fucking cool. See y'all later.
So clearly he's taking the blame for it. Or was he? Now listen to what he had to say on the Fox broadcast.
He never checked up, just ran me as hard as he could to get me back going, to get my momentum back going again. But when a guy's a little out of shape, you got to give him a second to collect it before you just ram him, or at least try to check up and push gently. But yeah, that's kids these days.
Kids these days. Not sure what Rowdy believes. The broadcast said it was not Gregson's fault and Busch just made a late move. I have to agree. Closing out that second stage was a battle up front, and Kyle Larson was running inside the top 5 when he dropped down from the top all the way to the bottom, thinking he was clear. He was not, and ran into SVG, who went for a spin through the grass. Larson suffered big damage that ended his race early. He later said in his interview that he had made a mistake. Bubba Wallace won the stage and was followed by William Byron, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, and Chase Elliott. Going into stage 3, I was really excited not just to see who would win, but to watch the racing. Seriously, I couldn't have been more entertained watching these guys making runs from the top, from the bottom, drafting, pulling the other guy back. It was a lot of fun just to watch the racing, which I heard multiple times throughout the weekend that it's the best racing track on the circuit. I have to agree. And I think it's really funny when you consider a few years ago when the reconfiguration was about to happen, numerous drivers were not happy SMI was making the change. I think everyone can agree now it was the right move. In that final stage, it was back and forth. At one point, it was a group of Toyotas at the front. A few minutes later, it was 4 Fords. With 38 laps to go, a Toyota and Ford in Hamlin and Logano made contact and collected a lot of cars in that crash, including Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman. Reddick suffered pretty severe damage to his right front fender. In fact, it was gone. With 30 laps remaining, the broadcast confirmed how racy the track was, as it had already set a track record for lead changes. In those final 20 laps, Bubba Wallace, who led 46 laps on the day, ran up front and looked to be a contender for the win. That all changed when a caution came out with 2 laps remaining, when William Byron had an issue, dropped quickly back through the pack, and cars couldn't avoid him, eventually resulting in a crash that involved 11 cars. Carson Hocevar, who was running up front, had some thoughts on the upcoming restart.
It was Bubba. Shake and bake. Let him know. It'll come down to me and him if it works. Happy? Otherwise, I will take the front row and go to Ross and say, shake and fucking bake. Because look behind him, it's Daniel. He's not going to leave him, so he's got to stick with me.
So after the red flag delay, we lined up for overtime. The question was, who would line up where on the restart? Bubba Wallace lined up on the inside of row 1. Christopher Bell lined up on his outside. Carson Hocevar lined up directly behind Bell. Unfortunately, there was no time for shake and bake as Hocevar made an ill-advised move trying to fill a gap that just wasn't there, which sent the number 20 car shooting off to the right into the wall, ending his day. And that took us to the second overtime restart. Bubba Wallace got a good push from his Toyota teammates in Tyler Reddick and Chase Briscoe, but made a bad move trying to block Hocevar up on the top, which opened the door for Hocevar and his 2311 Racing teammate, Reddick. A week after claiming the Daytona 500, the number 45 pilot, missing right fender and all, somehow managed to navigate his way to the front and stay there, taking the checkered flag first for his second win of the season. It's quite the amazing story if you think about it, for a team that just 3 months ago we weren't even sure if they were going to be around based on the lawsuit. Now Reddick, who went winless all last season, has won the first 2 races, and Bubba Wallace, while he didn't win the race, has finished in the top 10 in these first 2 races as well. And both drivers sit atop the point standings 2 races in. With his back-to-back wins, Reddick becomes the 6th driver in NASCAR history to win the opening 2 races of a season. The last 2 times it happened was in '97 by Jeff Gordon and 2009 by Matt Kenseth. I have to also give a shout out to the only other driver who has secured top 10 finishes in the first 2 Cup races of the season, and that's Zane Smith. He finished 7th on Sunday after finishing 6th last week at Daytona. There was just one post-race interview I wanted to talk about. Not so much because of what was said, but what happened. Watch this.
What more did you need for that to happen?
Yeah, it all, I think, kind of went wrong. We don't have to think it's... Jeez. 19's running us over. That's not so unnecessary.
Ross Chastain is someone who I feel is pretty level-headed and doesn't get bothered by much. Clearly, the number 19 team annoyed him here. All right, guys, that's a wrap on the exciting race weekend in Atlanta. Now we have several orders of business to tend to. First off, I want to thank you guys for all the kind words following the Wednesday video when I announced we had topped 15,000 subscribers. Thanks to all of you for making that happen. And now I want to announce the winners of our contest. The winner of this beaten and banging hat is Darren Jones 209. That's Darren Jones 209. And the winner of this beaten and banging shirt is JFM-JFM1461. That's JFM-JFM1461. And finally, the winner of the mystery prize, which is this autographed Kyle Larson card, is Sean D. Walsh. That's Sean D. Walsh. He's the winner of this autographed Kyle Larson card. Now, looking ahead, I wanted to let you guys know that I'll be visiting with Christopher Bell on Wednesday and interviewing Joey Logano on Friday. I'm looking for some questions to ask. I'll ask each driver one fan-submitted question. So submit your questions in the comments, and I'll ask the drivers one of your questions. And I also wanted to let you know that the Beating and Banging site is live with fresh stories that I was writing throughout the weekend. Plus, you can sign up for our newsletter on there. I sent out the first edition on Friday, recapping last week and all the things that happened. So go sign up for that. It's at the bottom of the Beating and Banging page. And another reminder is to go check out the Drivers HQ app. That's another project I've been working on this offseason. For you Jeremy Clements fans, it has a whole bunch of info on his career and up-to-date stats and videos on him from the last 2 weeks of the season. I'll be adding more drivers in the near future, hopefully starting this weekend at COTA. All right, guys, let me know what you thought about the racing this weekend in Atlanta. For you Kyle Busch fans, what did you think of his remarks? Was he wrong? And for you JGR and Spire fans, what are your thoughts on the drama that appears is going to play out in the courtroom this year? And finally, do you think Atlanta is the best track on the circuit? If not, what is? And don't forget, for you Seabell and Logano fans, submit your questions and maybe I'll ask it this week. Thanks again, guys, for checking out the latest episode and supporting the channel. I really and truly appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of your day.